to presenters' homework. It is time for your second test, 23. You're panicking, you're trying to change things later on.
We've had a few conversations off air and I'm trying to change things and I'm not allowed to, apparently.
Yeah, you're sitting on the fence. But here we go, let's put in the graphic, talk us through it. There's no revolutionary work up front.
No.
You've gone again.
I've gone the exact same again up front. I'm pretty sure if that pops up.
McCarthy hopefully fits.
Well, that's the asterisk that I would put on that, and Chesham would then go in there. And then in the backs, I have kept it largely the same. So I don't expect, like Dan says, to be a huge amount of changes. The change that I've made is I think Blair Kinghorn did enough tonight. I think he probably was the starter pre-first test, so it would be hard on Hugo Keenan, but I've also added in Matt Hansen. I think he's had a superb tour on and off the ball, so busy. His kick chase, Owen Farrell talked about that ability to win aerial contests. I think he adds so much to what is already an amazing backline.
Just so where's your left foot?
Not all challenge is it?
Yeah,
left
foot. Not all teams have a left foot.
Okay, but if so, James Lowe. I mean, if it might rain, might not rain.
I agree.
Still,
but I just think what he provides.
It's positive feedback, by the way. It's not. We're not suggesting it's a poor team.
Gang mentality here.
No,
You put it out there. You got to back it up. Don't look at me for help.
No, I'm not.
No, okay. Are you happy with that? Anything?
I would be hugely shocked. Shocked is the word if James Lowe does not feature. I think he's an absolute certainty to start. But could be absolutely wrong.
And to do with the left foot, or actually irrelevant of left foot, just
I just
has
think
to play
all around.
Yeah,
I think we got a little taste with his fend, what he can do with the ball. I think for exits, which is really important in big test games, that's a great option.
We saw the selection in the back row last week in terms of Andy Farrell came out and said that Tom Curry and Tyke Byrne were picked basically because he knows that they can produce big moments in big games. But James Lowe is that type of player for Andy Farrell, isn't he? In terms of tends to have big games, big moments, big games, etc. So again, I think when you win a test match as convincingly as that, and let's call it as it is, it was convincing on Saturday, even though it was only 8 points. I think it's really difficult to change too many people from the starting 15, and I think where we touched on it previously, I think the bench is probably where you can tinker a little bit more.
Where do we sit on the Kinghorn Keenan thing? So you've changed.
I would stick, and my personal preference would be probably Blair. I agree with you, John. I think he did enough in terms of form and fitness to probably get himself in the 23 if they pick Owen Farrell on the bench at 10-12.
We're probably looking at a B, therefore, for your starting 15.
That's not bad. I'll take
not
a B.
bad. So you got the chance to rectify it with the bench, and again,
well, it could go down to a C here.
Possibly could.
C minus, yeah,
or a D. Talk us through what you've gone with here. There was a bit of panic while we were in the break. Can I change? Could I? Is there? No, it's too late. We've got to go with it. So, Luke Cowan-Dickie in.
Luke Cowan-Dickie in,
because the line-out faltered perhaps in the last.
Yeah, a little bit. And I think he adds a little bit more around the park. Super physical. I think adds a bit more at the breakdown potentially for me as well. Porter same, Stewart same, Earl the same. I would bring in Morgan. I think the breakdown has been a consistent issue throughout the whole tour, and it was interesting hearing Curtly Beale talk. That's where they went after it again today. So I think he's done so much positive. Again, this is the team that I would pick, not necessarily a team that I think will be picked, and I'm of the former background, and I think he does so much good that he adds so much value. So, and I would put Farrell in there. 100% Farrell would be in there. And although everyone's disagreed with me, saying you can't put Aki on the bench with Farrell, I did it anyway.
You can do what you like.
Well, I know.
And Chesham's not in there because you've assumed that McCarthy's injured and Chesham's jumped into the second row.
Yes.
Okay. I think what I like about that bench is that if Chesham ends up starting, you've got Chesham and Tyke Byrne. You don't need to worry about second row cover on the bench. Just go and get two fetchers, two guys who are going to help at the breakdown on the bench. It allows you to pick 2 sevens on the bench, given that you've got Chesham and Byrne. And then probably the only change I would make from my starting 23 would probably be Blair Kinghorn at 23, because I think last week they needed centre cover and a 10-15 on the bench because of the lack of back three. This week they seem to have got obviously Blair Kinghorn back, and who knows with Mac Hansen, and they probably need cover at 10-12 on the bench rather than 10-15.
Just on John's team, because it's John's team,
yeah,
to focus on that. So can I ask a question? So 2 minutes into the game, let's say Blair Kinghorn started in your team. Blair Kinghorn gets injured. What's the reshuffle? Who's covering your back three? How do you survive with Farrell and Aki?
This is what I've learned in rugby. You can't cover everything, can you, Rog?
No.
Well, you could by having a back three player on the bench.
Yeah, but I didn't.
Okay.
Here's one I made earlier. Rog, would you like to debrief on what
Yeah,
John's
it's
done here today?
interesting. I see the merit of Farrell, Aki, but as Will said, you don't want. Maybe is Morgan and Earl an option direct onto the wing?
Well, this is the point. I think if you have Farrell on there, I think the team plays a very different way if Farrell has to come on at 12.
Sorry, yeah.
So then
Agreed.
you
I
can't
think-
cover everything. So he's talking about covering the back three, but you can't cover the centres, I don't think, with Farrell. He plays a lot of 12, but the way the lines are playing with Aki or Tuipulotu, it's a very different style
Yeah,
of
it is
play.
a really, really, really tough debate, I think, that's going to happen tonight, because you've got to look at Ringrose' capacity to play 13 wing as well at test level. Is he in the shake-up? I think he is. I think he'll stick with Keenan, but maybe I'm dreaming, but I think it's very hard to take out a 15 or last line of defence. Kinghorn offers more on the other side of the ball for certain.
Question for you all. Would Marcus Smith have been on the bench if Blair Kinghorn and Mac Hansen was fit last week?
So you're saying that have gone Farrell on the bench last week?
I think that because they would have had back three cover. Almost Marcus Smith had to be on the bench last week, didn't he? Because they needed 10 and 15 cover. This week, it looks as if they need 10 and 12 cover on the bench. Now that they've got back three fit.
And the interesting one is Marcus Smith's HIA.
Yeah, well, that could make it an easy decision anyway.
Can I ask you, as a coach, do you ever look at the weather and pick a team according to what it's going to do, or do you pick it to try and play?
Yeah,
we're hearing it's going to pour on
Great
Saturday.
question, yeah.
First one of the day.
Go on. First one of the season, actually, John. Don't come at me just because your homework's been ripped up.
No, it's very interesting. I actually, the coin toss is very, very important in my psyche when I grow up, because usually in the Northern Hemisphere you play into the wind. The Frenchies take the wind because they just love to steamroll a team in the first 30, you know. So I'd have interesting conversations with Greg Aldred in terms of my natural DNA is to go into it, because you kind of take 20 minutes to find a shape in a game. But the Frenchies kind of go, let's go for it. Let's be 30 points up at half time. But then if you're 8 points up at half time, it's not really great. I love the comfort of having the wind at your back coming home from, I suppose, my strength was probably tactical appreciation. In managing a game, I wasn't blessed as a runner, as you know. So just, I think that feeds off with your discussions with your player. But yeah, you have to.
On the
I would
weather.
always, sorry, exactly, Will. But sometimes, and maybe it's me as a young coach, but when I'm not young anymore, but I'd like to finish with my best 15. Because some people are really good impact players. And I think that comes into the debate as well, you know. And I think the front rows is interesting because I think they have combinations. I think there's John Fogarty from Ireland who has probably created a front row club among the 4x3, and it depending on which way they'll go. But I think knowing what you get from your cattle is very, very important.
Just on your weather question and knowing players now and the psychology of everyone being ready, I don't think it's a long time before we go like football and you don't announce, because this is relevant to your question of the weather impacts you. I don't think it's a long time to go where we don't announce the team until an hour before kickoff.
Really?
Because then you've got 30 players and you go, it's chucking it down with rain. I want my two best kick chasers, my two best tacklers,
but
my
you,
best back three.
you know, generally this day and age, it's very rare that if it's going
But an
to.
hour before,
You can't though with the regulations. So
yeah, no, I'm saying that I don't think it's long before they change that regulation.
It'd be great.
And modern players, could your players cope with not being told till an hour before?
Well, if we practice what we're preaching
Yeah.
all week, everyone is tuned in, and then after the first 10 minutes, if you have a Hail Mary, you can easily know on Monday that this guy hasn't really bought into what you're hoping to practice.
Interestingly, obviously the England game against the US at the weekend, they had an hour's delay, and a lot of them found that quite difficult to handle. So I don't know. It'd be very interesting to see. Would that add to the build-up or
Yeah, I
take
think
away?
Absolutely.
The speculation
Yeah,
goes on
yeah,
until.
yeah, great.
The other thing I wanted to ask you quickly is, obviously, we saw it once, maybe twice today, in what is an oval. Kickers sometimes find it much harder to find the touchline, etc. MCG on Saturday, is that a factor for? It's a huge stadium. You know, is that something for Finn Russell or not?
Potentially, I have to say, I thought Ben White kicked superbly well tonight. He didn't seem to find too many problems with finding the touchlines and bits and pieces. But I think you could probably look into things. What it does allow when you play in an oval and there's lots of space between the spectators and the stands and the touch lines is that you probably have to be a little bit more aware for longer. You look at the first try that the Lions scored against the AUNZ side at Adelaide Oval. Ball's gone way out. They've switched off. Lions have stayed alive. Quick throws, things like that. So I think that's more of the point you're trying to make rather than trying to find touch, and because the dimensions are the same, but it's probably more so staying alive for quick throw-ins and the ball isn't dead for as long as that, if that makes sense.
Just super quick on that. I had a chat with Ben White before the game and he goes, I'm totally aware of these. I'm going to take 5-10 yards off my kick for the reason that it's the perception of where the stand is. A lot of people from Pens do miss, to your point, touch in these ovals.
Yeah.
And Ben White was totally clued in on that.
Kicking at the Millennium Stadium, for example, or an oval is very different from imagery visualization, you know, because it's when you go on Friday in the captain's run, you pick out your points, where you want to, you know, if I have a penalty, because normally from anything line out infringements, the penalties are on the 15. So you can walk the 15 on your own 22 and the own 50 and on their 22 to pick out your pointers.
Did you pick your point out for that drop goal in 09 in Cardiff?
The one that a dead duck.
Hey, it counts. They all count. In 10 seconds, did the Lions close out on Saturday, or do we go to a decider?
Yes, I think they've got two. The Wallabies will be a lot better and probably add some physicality to their pack, but I think the Lions win on Saturday.
Lions win on Saturday?
Yeah,
Briefly.
I think Andy Farrell, I would say, you've asked me this question on tour a few times in terms of how does he read the room and how does he speak to his player. I would say he was particularly disappointed with his team's second half performance. I think from execution accuracy, they left an awful lot of tries out there. I think he wants them to rip this Australian team apart because I think they have the ball skills and capacity to do that. But Australia will be all in with Skelton and Valentini and they'll be a better team, but I think the Lions have it all to play for.
Glad you said skills. I thought you were going to say something else for a moment. Lions?
Yep, Lions for me.
Lions?
Yes.
Well, that sets us up nicely for a fall on Saturday, doesn't it? Do tune in from 9:30 in the morning on the Sky Sports.